5 spine-chilling secrets of the Catskills. Terrifying tales revealed from the haunted shadows. The Catskills had a way of swallowing secrets, and tonight, with the moon high and the owls howling, Claire could feel it. The air was thick with an unease that seemed to seep from the very ground beneath her feet. She was standing in her new home, a crumbling farmhouse with peeling paint and creaky floorboards, and it felt alive. As her heart pounded in rhythm with the sinister whispers of the wind, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped into a story far darker than she anticipated. That morning, while unpacking boxes, Claire unearthed a tattered journal beneath the loose floorboards of the attic. Excitement bubbled in her chest, a mixture of dread and intrigue ignited within her. The pages were yellowed with age, ink blotched from time. With each flip, strange traditions revealed themselves, rites meant not just to protect one's kin, but to celebrate pacts with the hidden spirits in the woods. Odd symbols and incantations were scrawled in erratic handwriting, chilling tales of families who vanished after angering the guardians of the forest. She read late into the night, her eyes wide and heart racing. The woods around her, shadows clutching at her windows, seemed to watch, creeping closer with every turn of the page. Something stirred in her chest as she realized those families had only ever drawn deeper into the darkness, like moths to a flame. But it was Timmy's giggle, echoing from the hallway, that pulled her back. For a moment, her dread melted, replaced by the sweetness of her son's innocence. But as days turned into restless nights, the harrowing sensations multiplied. Doors swung open when no one was watching. The floor creaked underfoot, though she was alone. Odd shapes darted through her peripheral vision, and Timmy, her once cheery boy, grew silent, as if the oppressive atmosphere was stealing his laughter. Fear curled around her like the vines enveloping the old barn outside. The locals were friendly at first, offering smiles and cheerful waves, but there was something in their eyes. Whispers followed her as she walked by, and the phrase Catskills curse danced mockingly on their lips. Panic surged within her as she realized how isolated she truly was. Desperation clawed at her throat, but the authorities merely offered platitudes, unaware of the storm brewing in her home. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The all-consuming eeriness reached a peak, and Claire felt like she was being hunted. Each night, the trees whispered louder, and the secrets of the Catskills clawed their way into her thoughts. But nothing could prepare her for the moment panic swept through her when she called for Timmy only to hear nothing in return. The silence wrapped around her, thick as the fog outside, and she felt her throat close tight. Placing one shaky foot before the other, she braced herself to enter the ominous woods, fingers trembling against the cold bark of the trees. The line between reality and something far more sinister blurred. Shadows flickered, and there, in the brush, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. She felt all but paralyzed by fear, and as the wind howled like a spirit in mourning, the depth of her horror began to reveal itself. The townspeople she had trusted who welcomed her into their lives might be hiding dark allegiances with the ancient horrors she had unearthed. Could she face the truth that lay before her and risk everything for her son? Or would she be consumed by the very darkness she had unknowingly awakened? The darkness of the woods wrapped around Claire like a suffocating blanket, pressing against her chest and making it harder to breathe. She blinked, her heart hammering wildly as the faint image of Timmy flickered through the underbrush. Was it really him, or just a shadow mimicking his form? "Timmy!" she called out, her voice strained and trembling. The wind answered with a mournful shriek, a chilling reminder of how alone she was. She took a hesitant step forward, the damp ground squishing beneath her shoes, and the night felt alive with anticipation as if the trees had ears and the night creatures had gathered to witness her fate. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Each rustle in the leaves made her flinch. She could feel eyes on her, creeping along her spine. The distant hoot of an owl made her shudder, a reminder she was intruding on something sacred. Something wicked. As she stepped deeper into the darkness, her hands brushed against thorny vines that snaked between the trees. They tugged at her jeans, refusing to let her pass. With a quick jerk, she freed herself, her breath coming in sharp gasps as panic swelled. Timmy! The name slipped from her lips like a prayer, voicing the desperation clawing at her soul. Just ahead, a clearing opened, bathed in an eerie silver light. The moon hung high, illuminating a jagged circle of stones, each one engraved with symbols she recognized from the journal. Fear wrapped around her heart. This place was no innocent clearing. It was a shrine, a remnant of the rituals described in that cursed tome. Then she saw him, a small figure in the middle of the circle, his back to her. His golden hair glimmered like a beacon under the moonlight. Timmy! She shouted, rushing forward, her feet pounding against the ground. As she neared, he turned, and what she saw knocked the breath from her lungs. Timmy's eyes were empty, voids of darkness that swallowed the light. His lips curled into a smile that was not his, a grin too wide, too unnatural. Mommy, he spoke, but the voice that emerged was crackling, twisted, nothing like her son. Mommy, come and play with me. Fingers of dread snaked around her throat. Claire staggered back, eyes wide with shock. What have they done to you? She gasped, clenching her fists to steady herself. Timmy stepped forward, the shadows shifting with him, whispering incoherently. It's fun here, they want you to. He gestured to the stones, and Claire noticed forms emerging from the darkness, figures with hollow eyes and frozen smiles, the ethereal shapes of the vanished families the journal spoke of. They reached for her with spectral hands, beckoning her to join their eternal torment. No! She screamed, retreating. Get away from him! But the shadows laughed, a cruel, echoing sound that reverberated through the clearing. Claire turned to run, but the ground below her shifted, treacherous roots rising to trip her. Mommy! The cry pierced through the cacophony, and Claire's heart shattered, throwing courage into her grasp. She scrambled to her feet, weight of the night a mere whisper against the urgency to save her son. As she sprinted back toward the edge of the woods, the laughter followed, twisting into a gloomy melody. Each step felt like a curse, binding her deeper into the horrors of the Catskills. And in that frantic moment, the chilling thought took root in her mind: what if Timmy was already lost to her? What if the woods had claimed him, turning her child into another dark echo in a night of fading memories? As she broke through the tree-line, stumbling into the moonlight clearing outside, Claire realized she was not just fighting for her son. She was waging war against the very shadows that had waited for her arrival. But the night had more to reveal. What price would she have to pay to sever the bond between her son and the malevolent forces hungrily watching from the dark? Claire burst from the woods, gasping for air, the chill of the night wrapping around her like icy fingers. Her heart raced, pumping raw terror through her veins as she tried to shake the images of the dark figures from her mind. The clearing outside the trees felt like a fragile sanctuary, but she knew better. The laughter, that hollow, mocking sound, still echoed in her ears, haunting her. Timmy! She shouted again, desperation clawing at her throat. A part of her feared she would never hear his sweet voice again. It might have been swallowed by the dark. She scanned the tree-line, searching for any sign of him. The moon illuminated the path ahead but left the shadows deadly and deep, lurking just beyond the light. Would he still be there, waiting for her? Or had the woods already begun to weave their cruel magic on him? Each breath felt like a weight, and still she moved, driven by the desire to find him. She had to understand what had happened in the clearing. The journal mentioned sacrifices, whispered of offerings made at that ancient shrine, and an ache knotted in her stomach at the thought of what had been taken from her. As she reached the edge of the woods, she hesitated, the instincts of a mother battling against the fear that anchored her in place. The wind howled, tossing leaves into a frenzied dance. It was a stark reminder of the danger that lingered just beyond her sight. Claire spun around. The trees whispered around her, their branches creaking like old bones. She could almost hear them calling out, trying to pull her back to the shadows. No! She yelled at the night, shaking her head fiercely. I want to go back. Suddenly, she noticed a flicker of movement from the corner of her eye. A shadow darted between the trees, swift and silent. Her heart leapt to her throat. Was it Timmy? Was he there, trapped, unable to break free? She took a tentative step back toward the woods, scanning the dark. When she heard it, a soft, barely audible whisper, the same voice she had heard moments before. "Mommy, come and play." Claire froze, heart stuttering in disbelief. It was unmistakable. This time, he sounded closer. Was this real, or another trick of the darkness? She had to know. She had to find him. Ignoring the trembling in her limbs, she stepped back into the shadowy embrace of the trees, each step a battle against the grip of fear. Deep inside, the chilling knowledge that the woods starved for something she might have to give gnawed at her resolve. "Timmy!" she called, this time more steadied, though her insides churned. With every breath, the shadows seemed to steep themselves deeper into her mind, warping her thoughts, filling them with shadowy promises of what could be if she just surrendered. "Mommy!" the voice echoed again. This time it was louder, filled with desperation, yet a hint of something else, something sinister that made her pulse quicken. Claire's resolve cracked. She needed to find him. Shadows flickered around her, and as she stepped deeper into the woods once more, she felt the air shift, thickening, almost alive. There was a darkness inside that yearned to claim her. She pressed forward, her gaze darting amongst the trees, her heart pounding like a war drum. What awaited her in those shadowy depths? Would she find Timmy, or would she plunge into the nightmarish reality the journal hinted at? Just then, a chilling wind swept through the branches, rustling leaves like voices whispering secrets. In that moment of uncertainty, she felt something brush past her. Not the wind, not a branch. Fingers. Cold, claw-like fingers. She gasped, heart racing. Now she was really not alone. And as she turned her head, something stirred behind her, something she could never have imagined. What had the woods been waiting for? Claire spun around, breath hitching in her throat. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, hiding whatever nightmare had just brushed against her. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she strained to listen. The silence was electric, pulsing with tension. She could feel the shadows curling around her, trying to pull her deeper, to shroud her in their darkness. "Timmy!" she called out again, her voice trembling. Panic surged through her as silence replied, thick and heavy. What was lurking in this twisted sanctuary? Her mind raced with thoughts of the journal's eerie warnings, a sacrifice, a price. "Mommy!" The voice, sweeter now, danced from the depths of the trees. But it didn't sound like Timmy. It felt wrong, tainted. Claire hesitated, her limbs quaking at the thought of what might be waiting just beyond the shadows. She pressed forward, swallowed by the forest. The pungent odor of damp earth and decay enveloped her. Every snapped twig beneath her foot echoed as if the world itself was holding its breath. She felt eyes watching her, hidden in the gnarled branches. The night seemed to pulse in time with her frantic heart. "Mommy, come play." The voice beckoned with a sinister lilt, and Claire clenched her fists, moving faster despite the weight of dread anchoring her down. She needed to fight. Ahead, dim light flickered between the trees, illuminating a narrow path. Was it real, or an illusion conjured by the woods? She couldn't stop now. Straining her eyes, Claire stumbled toward the glowing beacon, hope clawing at her chest. Her foot caught on something, sending her sprawling to the ground. Scrambling to her feet, she blinked back tears as she brushed dirt from her clothes. And then she saw it, a doll, marred and grimy, lying next to her. It looked remarkably like Timmy's favorite toy, the one he had lost days ago. Adrenaline surged through her veins, igniting every instinct. "Where are you, baby?" she called, her voice raw. Panic bubbled in her throat, growing like a beast desperate to escape. Just as she turned to press on, a shrill laugh sliced through the air, hollow, mocking. "I'm right here, Mommy," the voice transformed, morphing into something derisive and horrible. Claire spun around, and there, staring at her from behind a tree, stood a shadowy figure. Its features were obscured, just a silhouette twisted in mocking glee. The laughter echoed again, high-pitched and cold. "Join us." it taunted, arms stretching wide like branches ready to snatch her into an abyss of despair. Claire's instincts screamed, urging her to run, but her feet felt like lead. What was it? Was it merely a trick of the woods, or something more sinister? The laughter grew louder, drowning her thoughts. We've been waiting for you, Claire. Timmy has been chosen. Her chest tightened, and she stumbled back. No! She would not allow them to take him. Not without a fight. Every ounce of her being surged with determination as she charged forward, shoving aside the creeping terror. The trees seemed to close in, reaching for her limbs, fingers of shadows grasping at her clothes, but she barreled through, each desperate step drawing her closer to the flickering light. And then it stopped, the laughter ceased. Claire stood breathless in a small glade, the moon casting silver beams that glimmered upon a twisted altar, draped in shadows that seemed to pulsate. Heart hammering, she stumbled forward. The air felt charged, electric, and ahead, something dark stirred on the altar, something she couldn't quite make out. This was it. The truth awaited her. But just as she stepped close enough to see, a deafening crack split the evening air. The ground trembled beneath her, fissuring open as if the forest itself was alive, and she felt a dark force rising. Claire grasped her head as pain lanced through her. "Timmy!" she screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the encroaching chaos. And then, silence. A pair of eyes glinted from the darkness. What have I walked into now? Claire staggered, the ground beneath her shifting like a nightmarish sea of soil and twisted roots. The pain in her head merged with the terror in her chest. She glanced around, searching for the eye that glimmered in the dark, fright flooding her veins like icy water. Her breath came in quick, ragged gasps, each one cutting through the eerie stillness. "Timmy!" she shouted again, her voice catching in her throat. The forest, with its oppressive silence, seemed to respond with a mocking echo, a reminder of her desperate plea swallowed by the shadows. What did it want from her? Was this some cruel game, an echo of all she feared? The memory of the journal loomed larger in her mind, its warnings shrieking through the fog of her thoughts. A sacrifice. A mother's desperate search for her child became entwined with darker needs. Suddenly, the chilling laughter returned, echoing from the trees. "It's almost time, Claire. You must choose." "Choose?" she faltered, dizzy with the weight of despair pressing down on her chest. There was no choice. The thoughts spiraled in her mind like a maelstrom. "Show yourself!" she yelled, daring the figure to reveal itself. But the darkness only thickened around her, choking any flicker of hope. Claire steeled herself, remembering the sharp tang of the air when she first entered the forest. There had been an urgency then, an instinct that drove her forward. She needed to revive that spark. She took a deep breath, forced her feet into action, and began to circle the altar. It had obscured what lay beyond. She pressed against a cold stone, its surface slick with something moist and unsettling. Just beyond the altar, the flickering light and eerie blue glow beckoned. Shadows danced along the edges of her vision, and she caught glimpses of skeletal forms hidden amongst the foliage. "Timmy!" she screamed again, her voice cracking. Her heart surged with rage as she felt the shadows inch closer, trying to snuff out her will. "Mommy, help me!" The voice, not quite right, twisted her every thought into a knot. It was like being pulled underwater, gasping for air while something dark held her back. In a sudden burst of energy, Claire lunged forward, throwing herself against the altar. Her palm met the cold, wet surface, and visions flooded her mind, flashes of a dark ceremony, chanting, and a child, a small boy, his face distorted in sheer terror. No! It was her son, bound against the stone, dark tendrils entwined around his limbs. She recoiled, the horror setting in. The figures around the altar, twisted and grotesque, held their hands out, chanting, voices merging into a low, harmonious drone. They were the secrets of the woods, dark consequences of those who wandered too close. And they were claiming her son. "I will not let you take him!" Claire screamed, fury surging through her, igniting every ounce of mother's love within her. She hurled herself against the altar with every bit of strength she could muster. The ground shuddered beneath her, the very earth seeming to scream as she pushed against the dark. The figures paused, their eyes glinting, their laughter faltering. The shadows recoiled slightly, confusion rippling through their ranks. Claire drove forward, her heart pounding, every breath a fight against despair. Then suddenly, the altar began to dissolve, the dark magic that bound it flickering like a flame about to be snuffed out. "Help me, Mommy!" Timmy's voice cried again, fragile and desperate. She reached toward the light, stretching her hand out, feeling warmth that beckoned through the encroaching cold. Her mind raced as tendrils of darkness clawed at her heels. Could she save him? The altar's secrets melted away, but a darker force loomed in the shadows, drawing closer, pulling her back. Just as her fingers brushed the edge of the fading glow, the laughter returned, sharper and closer than ever. "You think you can fight us, Claire? You think you can choose?" The earth shook violently, and she fell to her knees as a new fear seeped into her heart, a realization that this battle was far from over. The eyes watched, gleaming with hunger. How had she become part of this nightmare? And what had she awoken in her desperation to save her son? Claire's fingers brushed the warm light, and for a fleeting moment, hope soared within her. But that moment was short-lived. The ground beneath her buckled, sending her sprawling back, the warmth pulled away like a mirage. The cold seeped back in, wrapping around her limbs, dragging her under. Shadows flared, wild and furious, the laughter now a cacophony. "Choose wisely, Claire," a voice twisted from the depths of darkness, more mocking than ever, slithering like smoke. "Not all sacrifices are blood." Panic flickered in her chest. What did it mean? She pushed herself up, fighting the weight trying to shield her from that light. Eyes wide, her heart drumming like thunder, she scanned the area. The grotesque figures had taken on form, their bodies sharply contorted, arms outstretched with an eager ferocity. "Timmy!" she cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. She needed to find the source of his voice, to resist. "Help me." It was weaker this time, the pain lacing every syllable. "Where are you?" she shouted, instinctively moving toward the altar's remnants. The soft glow shimmered in the distance but felt unreachable, a cruel tease in a swamp of despair. The figures swayed like branches in a storm, whispering her name, each syllable a serrated threat. Suddenly, one of the shadows lunged at her, its face an unspeakable horror, a grotesque imitation of a child's face. "Sacrifice your heart!" it screeched, the sound curdling her blood. Claire staggered back, nausea flipping her stomach. "No!" she yelled, a primal roar more felt than heard. She wouldn't give in to this dark pull. The thought of Timmy squeezed her heart with icy fingers. She was strong enough for both of them. As she rallied herself, memories crashed over her. Times when Timmy's laughter rang in her ears, his tiny hands wrapped around her fingers. But now, all she could feel was cold, wet darkness sucking the warmth from her body. The shadows closed in tighter, their breaths hot and rancid. "You cannot save him! But you can save yourself." The words felt like blades slicing through her resolve. She would never leave him. In an act of defiance, Claire twisted around, determined to face them. "I choose him." The ground beneath her bucked, as if in response. The serpentine shadows recoiled slightly, their laughter rising in pitch, vibrating with fury. "Foolish mother!" With newfound determination, she turned back toward the fading glow, every muscle in her body aching with effort. The light held a promise, a fleeting chance to reclaim her son from the depths of despair. Fingers trembling, she reached out once more. "Timmy!" Each syllable chipped away at the shroud of shadows surrounding her, driving them backward. But as her fingers neared the glow, the air thickened, suffocating. Claire's breath hitched. In that moment of desperation, the light flickered, and in it stood Timmy. His eyes wide, filled with a terror she couldn't bear to see. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Hold on, I'm coming." It felt close enough to touch, yet the shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of dark intent. They gripped her ankles, pulling her back into their clutches. "No!" she screamed, clawing at the dirt. The figures circled her, voices blending into a dreadful chant. "Give us your heart, and we shall release him. Her chest tightened, a moment of temptation washed over her. The ground trembled beneath her, a promise hung in the air, viscous, sticky. What would she lose if she gave in? But she spotted Timmy struggling, fighting against invisible bonds, eyes pleading. "I will not!" she bellowed, the fire igniting within her. "I would rather die than let you take him." And then a deep silence fell, as if the air stilled to witness her resolve. But just as she prepared to lunge forward, the shadows surged around her, a calculated wave, and with a whispered breath, a chilling promise echoed. "Then we shall claim." All the trees shimmered before her like ghosts, the darkness coiling tighter as her heart thundered with dread. What price would she pay to fight this unseen terror? And would she sacrifice herself to save Timmy? Or was there something even darker hidden in this cursed woodland? The shadows twisted and churned, pulsating in rhythm with Claire's heartbeat. Each fleeting second stretched painfully, thick with dread. The altar loomed behind her, and the light flickered the last remnant of hope. But it felt more elusive than ever now. Timmy's voice quaked in her ears. "Mommy!" Each cry tightened her chest, a noose closing in. She gritted her teeth and pushed through the desperate chaos, pulling each leg free from the clutches of darkness. Her resolve crackled, but she pressed on. "Timmy!" She fought to keep focus, inhaling the fetid air laced with decay and despair. Shadows slithered around her, their claws scratching against the ground like nails against wood, stirring a primal fear deep inside her. "You cannot hold out forever," a shadow hissed, leaning closer, its form morphing into something grotesque, half child, half monster. Its smile was wide, predatory. "A heart beats weaker when it's filled with love. We'll soon show you how fragile your affection truly is." With a surge of adrenaline, Claire pushed past its grotesque gaze, refusing to sink into despair. "You're wrong. Love is my strength." The moment that phrase slipped from her lips, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows howled in rage, twisting and convulsing as if her words were repellent. They hesitated, but only momentarily. Then, like a pack of wolves, they charged, and Claire barely sidestepped the rush. The cacophony crescendoed, thunderous and terrible. "Give in," they beckoned, a chorus. "Join us and let go of your child. You will never escape." "No!" Claire shouted, her throat raw. The ground trembled in response to her defiance, little tremors shaking her to the core. "I choose Timmy. I choose love, and I would die before I let you take him." At that moment, Timmy's face appeared in the light again, a beacon of innocence amidst the horror. But this time, her little boy looked pale and frail, the light around him flickering like a dying star. "Mommy! Please! I'm scared." The shadows chuckled darkly, closing the distance like a noose tightening around her heart. "Foolish woman!" One howled, and Claire felt the cold coil around her, dragging at her mind as if it sought entry. It whispered sweetly, promising freedom from pain if she simply relinquished her love, but Claire would never let them win. Moments replayed in her mind the nights holding Timmy when he was sick, his laughter echoing during sunny days, the warmth they shared. Each memory burned bright against the encroaching darkness. "Let him go!" she screamed, feeling fire ignite in her chest. "You can't have him. He's mine." The shadows balked, then surged again, thicker now, swirling in a maelstrom. The wood creaked around her as if the ancient trees shuddered in response to her fury. "Then we will take everything!" they screeched, unfurling dense tendrils that lashed at her, seeking her flesh, her spirit. Claire swung her arms, fighting them off, but they pressed closer, their twisted forms distorting the world around her. Fear lanced through her as she felt her own strength fading, despair whispering its seductive invitation. With each passing moment, the darkness seeped deeper, clinging to her flesh like an unwelcome second skin. "Timmy!" she cried once more, desperation clawing at her throat. Would she lose him? Just then, the light pulsed again, wild and bright. Was it flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat? A broken thought crossed her mind. What if the altar could be her salvation? She pivoted, intent on reaching it before the shadows could claim her. Yet, the figures lunged, a horde of torment ready to snatch her away. Claire forced herself to sprint, legs heavy with exhaustion but driven by instinct, a mother's instinct. "Timmy! I'm coming!" As she drew close to the altar, a wailing pierced the air. But would the light offer refuge or be a trap? And could she uncover the altar's true nature in time to save herself and her son? The shadows writhed and pulled together, forming a gnashing circle that seemed intent on devouring her very essence. Claire reached the altar, desperation clawing at her throat like a living thing. The light blazed wildly now, casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated the grotesque forms swirling around her. It was hypnotic, flickering like a dim flame in the wind but never extinguishing. "Please," she gasped, "show me a way." The altar shimmered, and as it did, Claire could feel the darkness grip on her loosening just a fraction. It pulsed in sync with her heightened heartbeat, echoing her fear yet promising salvation. She stretched out a trembling hand, drawn to the light that felt almost familial, as if it recognized her love. A ghastly roar erupted from the dark beings around her. "She dares to touch what belongs to us!" They shrieked, their voices layered like an endless echo, reverberating in her skull. "It's mine!" Claire shouted back, her voice breaking. "You can't take him from me!" Their laughter was a cacophony of despair, drowning her spirit. Yet she pushed forward, every ounce of her being focused on that glow. As her fingers brushed against the cool stone of the altar, a surge coursed through her electric, like the thrill of the first drop on a roller coaster. "Timmy!" she screamed, her heart pulling her back to the image of her boy's frightened face. She felt drawn into the radiant light, as if it could take her spirit and hide it away, protect her from the shadow's grasp. Suddenly, the air shifted, thickening with a sudden chill. Claire barely registered the faint rustle behind her, the sound swallowed by the whispers of darkness. She had to act. In that moment of clarity, she thought of the words she had yelled, of the fierce protection that surged through her when she referenced love. "If you truly want me," she cried into the paling dusk, "then you must take all of me." With determination, she pushed her hands deeper into the pulsing light, and the altar flared, radiating a brightness that blasted back the shadows with an ear-splitting shriek. They writhed and convulsed, their forms melting into the darkness like wax. But the moment that victory felt within reach, Timmy's voice shattered her hope once more. "Mommy! Help me! I can't see you!" Her heart stopped. She turned back, but the altar's light dulled, flickering erratically, and the shadows returned, wrapping around her legs, pulling her into their cold grip once more. "No!" she fought, but her strength waned with every tug. The light dimmed, shadows creeping in like smoke, blocking her vision. "Join us, Claire," a voice cooed, this time softer, luring her. "You would rather be with him in this void than face the pain of this life alone. Just let go." The dizzying pull clawed at her mind, a seductive lullaby promising a quiet end. However, amid the turmoil, something deep inside her ignited again. The voices of shadows twisted into laughter, taunting, but the thought of losing Timmy fueled her defiance. "I will never let you win!" she howled, voice echoing through the clearing. "I choose him! I choose love!" The air screamed with turbulence as her words filled the space between them, but the shadows lunged, pressing against her, determined to cram the darkness back into her heart. "Timmy!" Claire gasped, grappling the fading light and pushing against the oppressive darkness. But the shadows understood now. They were not simply meant to silence her, they were thirsty for what made her fight. The altar began to shake, and the ground trembled underneath her, a warning tremor vibrating through the ancient trees surrounding them. "Your love is a curse," the shadows hissed, their voices a unity of wicked whispers. "And it will lead to destruction." With one last desperate effort, Claire pressed forward against the light. Would her love conquer the darkness, or would it turn to ash before her very eyes? What other horrors awaited as the altar continued to quake? Would the light guide her to Timmy or bring forth even darker truths hidden within its glow? The altar's light flickered, battling the darkness, but Claire could feel the shadows snaking back, hungry and relentless. Each moment of brightness dimmed further, as if her very spirit drew from it, pulling her into an abyss of her own making. The cacophony of dark laughter swelled around her, like a tide reclaiming the shore, whispering doubts, fears, and promises of an escape she couldn't accept. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice echoed in the frigid air, a sound of pure anguish. It was a beacon of hope, yet it chafed against the surge of dread tightening around her. She could not let it break her. "Hold on, sweetheart," Claire shouted, her throat raw. Each word strained against the weight of shadow, pushing back against the unseen forces binding her. They swarmed and twisted, their forms undulating in grotesque mockery, faces resembling those she had loved and lost, family, friends, even strangers from her past. Each visage twisted into an expression of torment, their mouths forming silent screams. "See what you abandon!" they hissed, voices weaving in and out like a venomous breeze. "What hope can you find in trying to save a child lost to fate? Fate won't take him from me!" Claire screamed back, raw might surging through her. With a roar that seemed to shake the very earth, the altar surged once more, bathing her in a cold glow. The ground trembled beneath her, dirt and roots clawing at her feet as if the earth itself sought to anchor her to its dark heart. But the shadows responded, mounting a counterattack. Tendrils lashed out, wrapping around her wrists, coiling higher, squeezing until her hands turned purple. She stumbled but refused to relent. Through gritted teeth, Claire whispered, "Light, guide me." But what she didn't understand was that the altar was not merely light, it was a lens, amplifying all she felt. And with that amplification came a flood of long-buried fears and regrets. The shades spun around her, whispering memories of inadequacy, her failures as a mother, and the moments she had let slip away. "Your love is weak," they sneered, tugging at her, causing doubt to creep into her heart. "Let us show you how futile it is." Images flickered through the dimness, Timmy's first steps abandoned for work, bedtime stories skipped for stolen moments in front of the TV. They were all flashes of guilt that smothered her like a heavy cloak, and Claire felt the weight of it pressing down, threatening to crush her resolve. "I hate you!" she shrieked, her voice a wild animal caught in a trap. "I won't let you in! You don't own me!" The altar reacted, a brilliant flare consuming the surrounding trees, sending the shadows screaming into the night. But just as quickly, it began to pulse and flicker again. Cracks formed in the ground like dark fissures, threatening to swallow her whole. "Join us, the darkness can embrace you," the whispers curled back, softer this time, tantalizing. "You can be with him forever." Desperate, Claire fought, clawing at the air, grasping for anything tangible, praying for any sign of strength that remained. The shadows laughed, their amusement ringing hollow, feeding off her turmoil, and then, in the heart of her struggle, she remembered. Timmy needed her. "Your darkness is a lie!" she roared, amplifying her voice with every ounce of conviction left, as the ground trembled beneath her. With surprising ferocity, she wrenched her arms free, feeling the shadows recoil as if burned. "You want despair? I give you hope!" The altar blazed like an exploding star as her words burst forth, drowning out their shrieks. But it wasn't enough. The shadows were solidifying again, pooling like dense fog around her, chaotic and ominous. They needed just one small crack in her armor to flood her back. "I'm not afraid of you," Claire yelled, but even as she spoke, cold fingers wrapped tighter around her heart. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice cried yet again, far away but more desperate than before. Her heart thudded painfully, like a drum chanting a lethal rhythm. The altar's radical flicker destabilized, and waves of darkness closed in, drowning the light. That was her last chance, a final, vivid flash illuminating the truth she still didn't understand. Was it love or fear that would save her? What would she sacrifice to unveil the deadly secret lurking within the scattered shards of that glowing altar? The dark whispers surged, inviting her backward, dragging her into a haunting ballet between hope and despair. What was waiting just out of sight, the final revelation or a new terror? Claire's heart raced as darkness surged around her, the mocking laughter of shadows echoing off twisted branches. The altar flickered, struggling to maintain its glow, and Claire felt the weight of despair threatening to crush her bones. "Timmy!" she cried, desperation fueling every syllable. But beyond the shadow's desperate laughter, hope was a flickering flame, wavering against the tide of horror. The light pulsed again, casting ghastly silhouettes across the clearing, illuminating the twisted figures arrayed before her. They yearned, their outstretched fingers clawing at her with an eagerness that sent chills racing down her spine. They were almost pleading, almost familiar. Claire steadied herself, refusing to falter beneath the pressure as she clenched her fists, determination igniting in her chest. Suddenly, the cacophony dulled, the figures paused, and for a moment, an unnatural stillness enveloped the clearing. Claire took a breath, focusing on the altar-esque glow, grasping for the feelings that tethered her to the warm memories of Timmy. "Your darkness does not define me," she yelled, each word emerging from her throat raw yet resolute. The shadows recoiled, howling in rage at her defiance, yet she pushed through, fighting against the darkness that threatened to engulf her. "You cannot have him. I choose love." The echo of her words ricocheted through the clearing. The altar blazed again, bending the shadows as they thrashed around her. Claire surged forward, her hands reaching for that ethereal glow, if not for her own salvation, then for Timmy. "I've fought through pain, through fear, and I'll burn my love into this darkness if it means saving him." As she touched the altar, warmth flooded her senses. The intricate carvings surged with energy, pulsing in rhythm with Claire's heart. The shadows recoiled violently as the glow intensified, tearing through their gains like paper. The figures twisted and writhed, their grotesque forms collapsing under the weight of her growing light. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice, once haunting, now filled with hope, rang clear against the weight of despair. "Help me!" With renewed energy, Claire shouted, "I will not abandon you." Her fingers sank into the light, the warmth racing up her arms, filling her heart with courage. The shadows screamed, their laughter transforming into a panicked wail, and as Claire's resolve solidified, a blinding light erupted from the altar, forcing the darkness to retreat. "Now I choose," Claire declared, voice surging like a tidal wave against the darkness. "I choose hope." In that moment, a figure broke through the dense mist, Timmy, trembling but unharmed. His golden hair glimmered like a beacon of pure innocence in the chaos. Claire's heart swelled, and she pushed herself closer, fighting against the tendrils clamoring for her soul. "Timmy! Grab my hand!" she urged, longing to pull him from the darkness that sought to weave its way around him. With a frightened yet determined expression, Timmy lunged. The moment their hands connected, a surge of warmth cascaded through Claire. It felt like the world had tipped back into balance, harmony restoring what the night had tried to shatter. Together they summoned a wave of light that surged from the altar, a brilliant flash that cleaved through the darkness, like a diamond cutting coal. The shadows screeched and writhed, their forms distorting into hazy shapes, a myriad of lost souls that sought to reclaim what they never had. But they could not withstand the shining, brilliant light that enveloped Claire and Timmy, pushing them back, sweeping them into the depths of history where they belonged. The clearing shuddered, vibrant energy subsuming the nightmares woven into its fabric. With every ounce of Claire's love, the altar pulsed, illuminating the forest with bright, brilliant light. Shadows fell away, scorching into nothingness until the air hummed with silence. Timmy nestled close to Claire, fear still lingering in his eyes, but the warmth of their connection held sway against it. "Mommy," he whispered, bittersweet relief washing over them in waves. "I'm here, baby. I'll always be here," she replied softly, peppering kisses on his forehead, their embrace warm and safe against the chill. As dawn broke, painting the horizon with hues of gold and soft lavender, darkness receded into the folds of trees, swept away like a distant nightmare dissolved in morning light. Claire and Timmy stood together, a fortress of love radiating through, at last free from the oppressive weight of the night. The Catskills had swallowed secrets, historical burdens hidden within trees and shadows, but they had emerged victorious together. Claire knew they could face anything that came their way, love fortified against shadows hungry for despair, darkness fading into the whispers of the past. As the sun broke fully upon the horizon, Claire smiled broadly at her son, his laughter ringing sweetly once more, the sound echoing through the once harrowing woods. "Let us go home, Timmy," she said, and as they turned to leave, the woods whispered. The air felt lighter, the shadows retreating. They walked away, hand in hand, stepping into a bright future forged anew. Now, If you loved this story, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support because it really makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait any longer. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.